You might be a beat maker, clothes designer, graffiti artist, or novelist. Whatever kind of creative practice you engage in, I'd put good money on the fact that you've dreamt up some kind of perfect studio or perfect place where you feel like you could do that work most successfully. Maybe it's a bare wood house in an isolated rural landscape, keeping an eye on your back as you throw something up on the New York subway, or locking yourself away in some anonymous hotel room and turning the table to face the peeling white wallpaper. Every kind of creative act is going to be linked deeply to the environment in which it emerges. In this video then, we're going to be looking at different types of artists and creative space and thinking about what might truly create the environment for your best work. As we look into these examples from other artists, I'd ask that you keep an open mind about where your work could take you in the future. So even if these other artists might not align exactly with how you see your current practice, maybe some call could come to you and another door might be opened by one of the artists featured. Something that feels less comfortable, familiar now, but in the end could actually serve growth and give a space for some kind of new possibility to be revealed to you about the future of your work. Before we jump into the first artist and creative space that I want to talk about, I want to introduce you to something that's going on in my own journey behind the scenes at the moment and the usefulness I'm finding in this week's sponsor, which is Skillshare. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you'll know in my spare time I'm a bit of a struggling songwriter, and a big barrier for me has been trying to find a simple and structured way where I can grasp the production skills that I need and work with a teacher whose skills that I trust. Whatever your own creative goals, when you join Skillshare, you'll have access to courses from animation to photography to graphic design and music, as well as their new offering of learning pathways where they gather a sequence of classes to give you a guided and tailored route over a longer learning journey. The class that I'm currently using to improve my production skills is based around Ableton 12. I've been enjoying the way that I can sit back and take it in from the first to last lesson, but also how the clear titling and structure allows me to focus on specific things that I need when I'm trying to problem solve certain issues with my own project. So I'm just getting ready to try and do a little bit of recording, made my coffee, and I'll often just find something that I'm, similar to what I'm working on today. Knowing that I've got a relationship formed with that teacher, knowing that it's a structured course, knowing that they're not just trying to clickbait me and the titles are nice and clear, find a real lot of use in that. The first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So go get started and take a look. It's absolutely free, and taking that journey will support both you and this channel. A huge thanks for me to anyone who goes ahead and explores that. And with that said, back to the video.
Part 1. Creativity and conversation with a natural landscape.
So the first type of creative that I wanted to look at was the one who makes work out in nature. Seen in the creative modes of plein air painters and writings of musicians who remove themselves into natural environments, convening with something that feels more permanent, maybe larger, and perhaps just more real than the human culture that can so easily engulf us. In the readings that I've been doing in the lead up to this video, I've been discussing the writing and letters of painter Georgia O'Keeffe. O'Keeffe is an artist who moved through many different approaches to her work, but in the second part of her life, she found a great inspiration from the natural environments of New Mexico and other rural and often isolated landscapes she saw out on her travels. The natural environment was obviously a key subject for O'Keeffe's painting, not just offering her the shapes to paint in a figurative way, but also the energy and symbols that she needed to be able to bring forth and reveal something true that she recognized in the way that she saw the world.
The cliffs over there. You look at it and it's almost painted for you, you think, until you try. I tried to paint what I saw. So I thought someone could tell me how to paint a landscape, but I never found that person. I had to just settle down and try. They could tell you how they painted their landscape, but they couldn't tell me to paint mine.
Looking a bit at O'Keeffe's biographical story, we can get maybe some insight into why so many artists and creatives are drawn to those natural environments. In her early adult life, O'Keeffe spent most of her time in New York in a complex romantic relationship with artist and creator Alfred Stieglitz. Stieglitz seemed to offer some validation for her earlier work and brought valuable attention to her career. But after she travelled to the rural area of New Mexico, where much of her later work would be based, she cultivated that more entirely independent space for her creative expression, away from the social pressures and relationships that surrounded her life in the city.
It was nice of Stieglitz to let you go to New Mexico every summer.
Well, listen, he didn't let me go, I just went.
Was it hard convincing him?
He was never convinced, but I went. I had to go.
At the back end of this video, I'm going to be looking into the work and life of artist Yayoi Kusama. And one of the things I learned when writing this script was that Kusama and O'Keeffe actually shared a long correspondence in letters. In one of these pieces of writing, O'Keeffe talks about that relationship between New York and the newfound space she'd found away from the city. In 5 years, there are many changes in a city like New York, and I now feel that I don't know the art world as it is today. Here in the country, it is very beautiful dry desert with very fine cliffs of red and yellow earth. After many years spent with many people, I like my life here where I seldom see anyone. Again, there we're seeing those feelings of permanence, deep truth, and also just creative independence that artists may feel when they're able to work within that more isolated natural landscape. The idea of accessing new ideas and forms of meaning from being in nature is about as universal a human experience as we might define. There are many more great and interesting examples of this type of creative practice, and for each of the 3 categories of artistic space that I'm looking at in this video, I've put at least one more artist and a related resource available in the companion newsletter, which is linked in the description below.
I suppose I'm essentially a romantic. I believe in the sort of emotion that you get from what your eyes show you and what you feel about certain things. Well, I don't really know what I'm painting. I'm just trying to paint.
I'll be honest here, I'm looking with this newsletter to be able to develop a relationship with the people who follow there that isn't so much based on competing with whether I can make a thumbnail that they'll click. But this is more than just some marketing tool for me. And these pieces of writing that form companions to the videos I put out are becoming more and more a key part of what I want to offer on this channel. Not trying to close down issues and summarize everything for the audience, but instead looking to focus on just offering over further signposts and arrows for people to follow and other artists that they might find kinship in and form a relationship with that goes way beyond my own voice. So yeah, if you can understand that way that I'm proposing that, then the links are there in the description, and you can always come and join completely for free if you like.
Part 2. Creativity and Conversation with Human Culture and an Urban Space.
When I was thinking of who I wanted to include in this video, I picked up a book on Keith Haring, which became a bit of a revelation. It's one of my favourite parts of making this work, that discovery process that I can go on every time that I go in and give myself the space to open up a topic idea. Keith Haring was an artist who was deeply linked with urban public space and the philosophy behind his work, that art should be a universal thing that was easily consumable by all.
It seems to me the only thing to do in this world is to do something. The doing is what the world is. but only I can make these things that are called the works of Keith Haring.
In the journals I was speaking about, Haring presents as an artist who is inherently social, sucking in the world and experiences around him before working to form his unique and iconic style. I've become self-confident while on this vacation, not aware that I'm still a student, Haring writes. It is important to acknowledge that I should be open to everything, that I am merely gathering information. Do not place too much emphasis on my current experimentation and investigations. They are only records of my search. I love this quote because it reminds us that iconic artists are just people who existed before they created those timeless figureheads of work and went on human journeys just like our own to reach that place where they did that work that we recognise so much. We can see Haring's work as coming out of that famous 1970s, 80s New York art scene, and also as a product of the energy of the early hip-hop culture and his translation of that energy into his own relentless drawing in the New York subway system. Working on empty marketing spots within the stations, it's said that Haring could create up to 150 images in a single run through the subway. With the constant onlookers and threat of police, we recognise how Haring found a form and space for his work which gave energy to his need for universality and escaping the gallery with his art to find real and immediate public relevance.
My support network is not made up of museums and curators, but of real people. And that's good because everything I've ever tried to do was cut through all that bullshit anyway.
This was less about sitting in the studio making work and thinking about what people might reflect on it afterwards, and more stepping outside, confronting that space of judgment and allowing the artistic style itself to become a product of that environment. Of course, Haring worked inside the studio too and had a diversity of creative output throughout his career. And I want to step in here quickly and just say, yeah, I am being somewhat didactic about the labels I'm putting down here, but I hope that you'd recognise that this is a think piece and I'm offering a framework, not the framework that understands the ways that these artists worked. If you want to hear more of the direct words of Haring's journals so that you can witness that artifact and decide things for yourself, another quick plug here for the other material that I put out too, and this time on the paid channels where I've started to and am going to continue to read Haring's journals in a live video where the audience can have some kind of discussion if they want, do their work alongside or just chime in to say hi. Thanks for being the first comment in the live chat. And yeah, I guess that kind of very much helps me say that, yeah, this is a space for you guys to come in and kind of, yeah, use it however you wish, basically. So yeah, if you're interested in that, that's all available too, and on with the video.
Part 3. Creativity and conversation with the internal landscape.
It's well known that some writers, when presented with a room in which to work, will place the table facing the plain blank wall as opposed to the window and view outside. Here we come on to the last kind of category or label that I wanted to put on a type of artist or creative space, and that's those whose work can be seen to come from an internal conversation and convening between their inner space and the craft at hand. For an example of this, I'm going to turn to that artist that I mentioned earlier, Yayoi Kusama. Within the thought model of this video, I'm presenting Kusama as someone whose work is highly personal, drawing out from that deep inner space and manifested from an obsessive individual practice. I got up each day before dawn and worked until late at night, stopping only for meals. Kusama tells us in her autobiography, Infinity Net. Before long, the studio was filled with canvases, each of which was covered with nothing but nets. In time, my friends grew uneasy and peered at me with anxious blue eyes. "Yayoi, are you alright?" they'd ask, genuinely concerned. "Why are you painting the same thing every day?" I would cover a canvas with nets, then continue painting them on the table, on the floor, and finally on my own body. As I repeated this process over and over again, the nets began to expand to infinity. I forgot about myself as they enveloped me, clinging to my arms and legs and clothes and filling the entire room. Now, it's not for me in this video to try and analyse the exact roots of this kind of private and obsessive creative practice that Kusama had. But something may be found in her childhood where her absolute focus and drive to create work became the tool by which she could escape an entirely different life which society had imagined for her.
私の希望というのは将来芸術家になることだったので、それで10歳の頃から私は絵を山のように描きました。母が絵を描いてはいけない、お前は財閥の人と結婚して将来家庭の主婦になると言って、私の絵の具だとかカンバスなどを取り上げてしまいました。
The challenges to become an accomplished artist in a Japanese provincial milieu must have driven this notion that at some point she would have to escape.
Travelling to America in the late 1950s to pursue her work, Kusama built a name through relentless drive and self-motivation. And don't get me wrong, in this video, I'm not trying to cast her as some kind of recluse or locked away genius. Kusama's career shows an artist that's way more complex and multifaceted than those simple labels. What I'm trying to explore through Kusama's example here is the type of creative who would obsess and be compelled by her work in any context. Somebody who seems entirely intertwined with that artistic practice. And we can link this kind of need for compulsive or obsessive practice to the product and type of work that Kusama creates. Large crafted products like sculpture or great mark making exercises can require the large amount of time invested into the actual act of creating that physical object. Like a novelist, audio engineer, or video colorist, then yes, the ideas and concepts behind the work are super important, but there's a large part of the process that mirrors the skills of a talented craftsperson too. Repeating similar actions over time and committing to months or maybe years of work to realize a single creative product. Long processes like this are often going to dig on that need for a consistency of space within which we can work. These private creative studios hold the tools of the trade, but the energy of the work is drawn from inside the artist or artists that enter into them.
In closing, life knows more than you.
I just wanted to pull us back to a quick note about the need for us to try and avoid boxing ourselves in. What I mean by this is pretty simple. There's a large part of my own practice and a lot of the creatives that I've engaged with in the past that feel like they can become kind of loners with their work. It's easy for me to rationalize the idea that I might need complete privacy or never be interrupted when I'm writing these scripts, for example, or trying to work on a song. We should be careful with what we wish for here and recognize that it's really easy as creatives and just as people to be drawn towards experiences that make us feel less challenged, more comfortable, and at the end of the day can end up making ourselves or just the work feel sterile. What I'm saying is, wherever you find yourself wanting to work, just always keep in mind that however old we are or however much experience we have, life will always still be there to surprise us and teach us new things. A quick moment now to thank all the paid supporters who helped me make this work, and a sincere thanks from me and everybody watching here to them for doing that. So yeah, with that said, good luck until I see you next time, and yeah, peace.